Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Inner World podcast. I am your host, Dr. Pedro Cortina. In this podcast, we aim to explore the most powerful, efficient, joyful, and sustainable models of inner transformation out there. Thank you for joining us today. Let's talk about openness today. It seems to be somewhat of a counterintuitive response to everyday living. As we go about our day, generally speaking, we'll probably be more on the defensive side, on the survival side, on the not know what to expect side of things. And as we do that, and probably, of course, without noticing, in a very innocent way, build a bunch of obstacles for ourselves along the way. One of the deepest experiences we may all have as human beings is some form of early childhood beware kind of situation around life and others and risk. And in many, many cases, and don't get me wrong, in many cases this is perfectly appropriate. Nevertheless, it's probably a good question to ask if it was overdone, if we have done that overdoing ourselves as well, with ourselves and with others. But mostly look at things that do not imply clear and immediate danger. Of course, when we're talking about risks that are self-evident, or when we're children, this whole idea of stranger danger, there are very clear and important reasons why this is important to be shared and in a way structured into our psyche. Nevertheless, it's either a temporary measure that's needed for the purposes of addressing our vulnerability when we're young, or probably it remains as a form of backdrop, as a latent whispering at the back of our head. And sadly, but probably the case way more often than what we would like to accept, this distrust of others generates more solidified tendencies in our personalities, or moves us into particular attachment styles that maybe result in counterproductive experiences. So exploring openness is a relatively challenging, probably. I'm not sure about that word. It's relatively, let's leave it challenging, in the sense that on the one side, there is an aspect of openness or defensiveness and defensiveness that is driven by survival, and it's perfectly understandable. Yet again, there's an aspect of openness where if we are not able to realign ourselves as we grow, as we are removed from certain moments of or times around risk and vulnerability because of our age, and we update ourselves, and the parts of us that carry these concerns, probably we are in for a difficult experience when relating to others. Openness can be transformed in various different ways. The first thing I believe is the most important thing is to actually acknowledge that condition, our level of openness to others, our comfort in interacting with others, our ability to feel safe and accessing the present moment when we're interacting with others rather than projecting, anticipating, doubting, assuming things. And this is something that we can actually learn, and we can learn to do it in different ways. The most efficient, effective, powerful way I've noticed and experienced in terms of learning to expand our capacity to be open to others and to ourselves, of course, and to difficult parts within ourselves as well, is exercise that is very simple. The exercise is basically we sit for a second or we lie for a second and we notice any discomfort in our body. I first wrote about this exercise around 10 years ago in my first book, Curflexion. And the exercise is very simple. As soon as we identify discomfort, we open up to it. Instead of resisting or countering it or defending from it or trying to run away from it or trying to push it all the way to the back, we welcome it. We open to it. We receive it. At times, especially at the beginning when we start practicing this exercise, it could be a little bit daunting. It could be a little bit potentially overwhelming because many of these emotions and sensations and discomfort that we've been holding within and that we've been experiencing throughout our lives have a particular synergy force behind them. They want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want to be held, they want to be witnessed. And because we've been pushing them for far too long, probably at the beginning they may show up in ways that are a little bit more intense when it comes to our comfort level. And this is probably part of the challenge because it has a little bit of a curve at the beginning, a little bit of a challenging curve at the beginning. And what I've done personally and my experience with this exercise is even if at first it feels more challenging, if we keep at it, if we keep sustaining and holding and receiving and opening up to whatever the discomfort is, even if at times it feels unbearable or in a way unmanageable, if we allow ourselves to keep that space of openness, just allowing the sensation to be, to do whatever it needs to do, to move around our body wherever it needs to go up and down, to increase in intensity, to decrease in intensity, to contrive our inner organs, our guts, to pressure our heart, to constrict our airways slightly, to push down our back, to whatever it is, tension in the head, whatever shows up. If we allow and open and breathe and open and allow and open and breathe and open, this curve of intensity naturally and effortlessly subdues. It becomes first manageable and then completely leaves our system. It's as if all these dense negative emotions have been waiting to be held, have been waiting to be witnessed, have been waiting to be acknowledged. And of course, when probably we first opened the door, all this pressure could manifest a little bit. And that's okay. And that's okay. We know it is part of the process. We know it is part of the mechanism, the internal mechanism around our capacity to hold these sensations and emotions. At some point in doing this exercise, the experience for me, and this doesn't have to be the case for everyone, of course, I have many clients that never experienced this curve of intensity. For me, it was quite real. And at some point in the middle of the intensity, some parts of my psyche were thinking at some point, oh, this is never going to end. This is you're opening the door to a new state of mind, to a new way of living in this world with all this pain. And it was quite scary. It was quite challenging to also listen to those voices inside. And now I clearly understand what was happening. These voices were somehow part of the protective inner structure that I had built throughout many years of pushing away these intense emotions and pushing away these intense feelings and thoughts. And so it was in their best interest, of course, to try to move me away from that risk, from that potential continuation of pain. And this is where we might say that this approach is a little bit counterintuitive, and this is a sticky word because it would be important to explore what intuition means. In many cases, this is my experience, and I'm a firm believer of this. Many cases, what we perceive to be intuition, it's not really intuition. It's subconscious resistance, or it's the activation of protective parts within ourselves that instead of allowing us to acknowledge and receive and open to whatever needs to be seen internally, have created these mechanisms to quote unquote defend us from pain. And even if well-intended, and this is very important, even if well-intended, all these mechanisms might be viable of or a service to us in very basic or early models of human survival, when we need to make sure that we're viable in terms of our ability to survive in this world. It'd be very difficult, very complicated to, additionally to having to deal with certain challenges or certain trauma or certain tragedy in our lives. We did not have these protective parts of us that allow for this pain to be compartmentalized and managed somehow. But it is the case, and it was the case for me, and it is the case for many of my clients, that there comes a time in life when somehow this internal assumption that these defensive or protective mechanisms have to keep operating in the same way starts to not be viable any longer. In other words, it may seem as if at some point our inner system understands that we now have the capacity to address these accumulated, dense, protective, survivalist energies in order to be able to move beyond them, in order to be able to allow for more joy, allow for more fun, allow for more connection, allow for more understanding of the world, allow for more service to others, allow for more transcendence. And again, it was my case for sure, the manifestation of this need for these protective, darker, denser, more painful energies produced in me what I would naturally or colloquially call a time of intense depression, a time of intense inner turmoil, a time of intense dread and even in heightened points some panic. And at first I try to use the same methods that we've kind of learned throughout society or subconsciously, and try to push that pain further and further away. And the more I did, the more painful it became. The more I did try to push that pain away or inside or not address it, the more it wouldn't have it. Until a point where it was opening to it, receiving it, welcoming it, or not being able to live a viable life anymore, or simply crumbling into that looming, horrible, terrible darkness that I was interacting with. So this invitation of, well, probably we don't need to get to a point where the system needs to shock itself into opening itself. Hopefully we don't need to get to that point where our own system, our own psyche is putting us in a position where it's either we open or we crack. Hopefully we can proactively engage in welcoming work so that we are not having to face such intense situations as we sometimes do, some of us. But then again, it seems that being proactive is not something we humans do very well, and often tend to be a little bit either distracted or not interested in things that do not seem to be of primordial importance. So maybe it's just the way nature and our psyche shows up when it is time to allow for all this to be seen. So again, in terms of the exercise, we allow ourselves to relax our body. We can sit down or we can lie down. We can take several deep breaths. And as we do that, we just open up to whatever discomfort is around. And this discomfort could be a simple, nagging, low-level form of anxiety or doubt, or it can be an intense experience of anguish or anxiety, for sure. And as we do that, we wait for it to come and we open. One of my strong recommendations for my clients is when we're welcoming an opening, it's also very important to bring in a sense of expansion of this canvas that is receiving this discomfort, to expand it in a way that is more than enough to be able to sustain whatever discomfort show up, regardless of the intensity of the discomfort, regardless of the suffering that it produces. So we breathe in, we receive, we expand. We breathe in, we receive any discomfort that is showing up, and we expand our capacity as much as we need to expand it to be able to hold it. And we just stay there. We just stay there and stay there, welcoming everything and anything that needs to be held, that needs to be seen, that needs to be witnessed, until the process naturally starts to consume itself. And this is very important. We don't do this exercise with the expectation of gain, with the expectation of completion, with the expectation of feeling better. If we do this exercise with that expectation, we're only going to be fueling the anxiety and the transactional mind that is trying to get rid of the discomfort. So in a way, what we're looking for is a profound sense of surrender to the experience. And by surrender, I don't mean in any way, actually. I don't mean for us to surrender to it and have it become have it blend with us in a way that it takes over. I'm referring to surrendering to it as the canvas, as the chalice that holds whatever needs to be held, as the platform that sustains whatever needs to be sustained as the infinite space that can hold absolutely everything. And as we do that, we allow and expand and remain in that space until the pain, the discomfort consumes itself. It's as if we were waiting. It's as if we were not really waiting. It's as if we were allowing this candle to burn, to consume itself on its own. And the fire in the candle is our awareness, our capacity to see and hold the pain and to witness the pain and to allow the pain. That is the flame of the candle. And the wax of the candle is all this accumulated density, pain, doubt, distrust that we've accumulated. And kindly and gently, slowly but surely, as we hold this awareness of this density, of this pain, of this discomfort, of this anxiety, this interaction between both transforms and consumes this denser energy into clarity, into understanding, into a sense of capacity, of being held by ourselves, of being sustained, of being capable of holding and receiving all this anxiety that we might have accumulated throughout time. This exercise is incredibly powerful because if we're able to do it, and if we're able to consistently engage in this process, this denser energy slowly begins to transform itself into clarity and joy and understanding, as I was saying, allowing for our experience of inner turmoil and pain to be less and less every time, and getting to a point where any inner discomfort is quickly noticed, quickly allowed, quickly welcomed, quickly held, quickly witnessed. And because there's not a huge backlog and there's not a huge amount of accumulated density behind it anymore, as we practice, our capacity to access a clear space, a clear mind, an openness, continued sense of inner understanding is something that we can definitely achieve. And when we do this, this naturally moves into our world, in how we interact with others and how we connect with others and how we start to notice we are not defensive anymore. We're not afraid anymore. We're not apprehensive anymore, because we now know that we have this capacity to hold whatever discomfort may come in this space of receiving, in this space of willingness, in this space of openness. And this ends up transforming our life outside. We often think that personal transformation is something that serves to be done with others and in relationship to others or for others. And it may definitely work, but the principle is the same. The principle is this opening, this allowing. So we can also start by doing that when we're interacting with other people. If we're interacting with other people and we notice certain tension or apprehension or density, we can open up in that moment as we're having the conversation with this other person in front of us, and just open to whatever arises inside coming from this interaction. Welcoming instead of trying to fix, instead of trying to prop yourself up, instead of trying to force yourself up to be stronger or more capable or less emotional or less distracted or this or that, whatever is your go-to list of things that you believe you should be doing when you're feeling discomfort. Rather than doing that, allowing ourselves to open, welcoming the discomfort, welcoming the density. Even if at times it feels a little bit overwhelming. And slowly but surely, being able to hold it and hold it and hold it in a way that we allow this density to consume itself, using the flame of our witnessing. Flame sounded a little bit too excessive, probably. Just the awareness of our witnessing and relaxing into that. So that's a great practice. I'm probably going to do a meditation with this practice pretty soon, and I'm going to be adding it to the podcast as well. But probably I'll do it next, probably, because this could be a good introduction and a good explanation of that meditation. And in doing so, in allowing for all this dense energy to be, and it's a very gentle process. This is not a process that we need to force at all. It's a little bit, probably be, for sure, it would be counterproductive if we force it. But as it comes, as we allow this discomfort, as we allow ourselves to practice, as we allow ourselves to be comfortable in this space of willingness and openness, we are going to notice that our capacity to hold discomfort increases dramatically. And also we will notice that this discomfort slowly starts to be transmuted literally into clarity and openness and play and understanding of life and this lived experience. So thank you for joining me today, and meditation on openness or willingness will be coming up as the next episode. Thanks again. Have a beautiful day. Thank you for joining us today. This is the Inner World Podcast, and I am your host, Dr. Pedro Cortina. See you next time.